I remain the very distinguished temple. Okay.
Okay, go on.
Can as much as the legal team of SERAP must always come up, to show that they are still intact. But I don't know if they are listening to me. Why not we achieve something as a result of the earlier suit they have pushed forward to the Honorable Court? Let's see the end. Rather than, pushing forward to unnecessary side attraction and cheap scores that does not make any sense to us as a people. It is very much obvious that the series of court suits of SERAP has compiled the courtroom. And for me, it gives a sort of concern that SERAP will be coming up like this, to be on the news, on the newspaper headings. They sue this, they sue that. All the government parastatals, all the government agencies, SERAP has virtually sued all of them because of misappropriation of funds or corruption or the other. But have we asked ourselves, has SERAP come up to tell us the one they have won? The one, at least, they have one that has resonated to the plight and the yearnings of Nigerians. For me, SERAP is very much obvious at what Fela said. There is a carpenter that does not know his job. You know what Fela said. Thank you.
All right, Temple, thank you very much. Nigerian for good morning.
Good morning, Etienne.
Good morning. Your name, please, and where you're calling from.
Well, my name is Chief Commander Kayembre.
All right, go ahead.
I'm calling you from the headquarters of Asai local government.
Go on.
Yeah, excuse me. I mean, Sarah is doing a very good job. But the problem we are having is our judiciary. The judiciary is not helping the country. When a matter of such a magnitude comes to them, you see how they will be playing around with that matter. I look at how many cases that SERAP are taking to court. They are not getting a fair judgment. And that is why the political office holder is joking on the intelligence of the nation. If not, the way SERAP is going, there are also other NGOs helping them, assisting them in some other areas. I think the political office that by now, they should have begin to check themselves. If not, look at the Senate President. Look at the statement he made. Clark has paid money to your account. You are going for this holiday. You are going to use it to enjoy. Sorry, I withdraw back that word. I have sent a prayer to your mailbox. You will go safely and come back and enjoy yourself. You can see how they are playing on the intelligence of Nigeria. If it's in a Kelan clan, Senator Akpabio should have honorably resigned by now. But right now, it's still up with Larry. And where do we go from there? Look at our Mr. President come on board. And shouted subsidy has gone. There is no any economic team. And he has not studied the Abbas note. He just shouted subsidy has gone. And Nigeria kept quiet. The labor union kept quiet. Look at oil marketers telling us that they are going to still increase fuel. And this economic that Nigerians are facing, they don't really have the people at hand. And Sarah, I pray God to them that God will indeed give them whatever is required to fight this injustice. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you very much. It's a concern for many people. It's the fact that they during the elections, for instance, we know that SERAP had lots of suits. Some of them calling out against the former president Buhari. Plenty of them against the government and the past administration. How those suits ended? What did they make out of it? All these are concerns and questions, and I've got a lot of people talking. Good morning, Nigeria Info.
Good morning.
You're welcome. Your name and where you're calling from, please. All right. Hello, Nigeria Info.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning to you. What's your name, please?
My name is Mr. JP calling from Lepawa.
All right, go ahead.
I must commend the SERAP. Just like the last caller I just said, I must commend them. There is one thing. It is one thing to go to court, and then it is one thing for the complainant to have a victory. It all bows out on the side of the judiciary. Yes, because we are in a country whereby some of the judiciary sectors are not helping issue. This is a corruption matter. How can a Senate president come boldly and tell the country that, or the member that they have disbursed some certain amount to their post, let them go home and then enjoy? In other countries, in Western countries, it is an impeachable offense. That Sarah have gone to court is recommendable. Then it is not left the judiciary to do their own bit. And if other sectors, NGO back up Sarah in this fight, we will go to length.
Thank you very much. Let's go for this commercial. When we come back, we'll get across to my guest. Stay tuned.
Nigeria Info. Right back after this.
Kolawole Oluwadare will be joining us via telephone. Mr. Dare, good morning to you.
Good morning.
All right, welcome. So let's just quickly get into it. We are aware that SERAP is suing the Senate President and Speaker of the House of Representatives over several issues. The allowances, we all heard the comments by the Senate President about, monies. Even if he said he withdraws the statement at the time, well, it was already out there. And we know that they had the palliative of over 70 million, and then there's talks about another 60 billion thereabout for vehicle purchase. And SERAP is going to court. First off, why is SERAP going to court for this? I think it's only clear and proper that we put that in proper perspective and know why. Is it that it is not the right of these lawmakers to get those sort of funds? Or what exactly is the reason why SERAP is going to court with this?
Thank you very much. To understand this clearly, there needs to be a lot of stuff. We need to look at this within context. And that is within the context of transparency and accountability in one hand, and the welfare of the people on the other hand. So when we look at the first issue, transparency and accountability, to provide a bit of example, in 2022, December, when the 2022 appropriation bill, which became an act, which of course is the budget, was passed, the President proposed 169 billion for the National Assembly. The National Assembly on its own increased it to 228 billion naira. That is the budget that we're operating presently. And now the National Assembly did not provide details like other ministries, departments, or the agencies of government will do. They did not provide details of how much of that 228 billion naira is recurrent expenditure or how much is capital expenditure. And that amount also is by statutory transfer. And that means that Nigerians, and by Nigerians I mean all of us, including public institutions who are also allied to the National Assembly, including the other two branches of government, judiciary and executive, do not have the benefit of knowing that critical detail. So for all we know, perhaps that 228 billion consists of 90% recurrent expenditure. Perhaps we do not know. And recurrent expenditure is where ideally the salaries, allowances, and other emoluments of the National Assembly members will be drawn. Secondly, in July, the President presented a supplementary appropriation and allocated 70 billion as it were for palliatives, which of course they denied, and 40 billion was also planned by the National Assembly to buy vehicles. Again, we do not know where these funds are coming from and why they would need a supplementary appropriation in the first place when 220 billion naira was voted to the National Assembly. And this consists of less than 500 people, of course, minus those who work with them as legislative aides or staff of the National Assembly Service Commission. And so the second point, which is the welfare of the citizens, it will be very hard, and I would listen to the logic of anyone who wants to make this argument, to convince 133 million poor Nigerians that spending 40 billion to buy vehicles for less than 500 people favors 133 million Nigerians. And don't forget that 133 million poor Nigerians, as stated by the National Bureau of Statistics, was in 2019. That is before the removal of fuel subsidy. Of course, naturally, that figure will be more now. And so how can we marry this act of the National Assembly with the oath of office they've taken, which of course is a constitution, so it's a constitutional matter, that they would use their powers and offices in the interest and the welfare of Nigerians? It doesn't make sense. And these are members, like I said earlier, we do not even know how much they earn. So we do not even know whether what they earn is even enough to buy those cars 10 times over. And so that is the basis of why we've suggested in an earlier correspondence with the National Assembly before we filed the suit, suggested a better use of these funds, where those funds can be voted for. We have mentioned two instances, education and health. And for education, we have more than 20 million out-of-school children in Nigeria presently. In 2019, it was 30 million. Now it's 20 million. And we're talking of unemployment, we're talking of insecurity and banditry and terrorism, and the number continues to grow. And the UBEC Act provides clearly that not less than 1% of the consolidated revenue fund will be allocated to education, to primary school education, and the first 3 years of secondary education shall be free. That is the law. What Nigeria does, and what Nigeria did in 2022, is that we allocated just that 1%, when the law is not less than. So it means it could be more than 3%. It means as of 2022, when the National Assembly got 228 billion, And as I do like this year, when the National Assembly got 110 billion, they only allocated the minimum to education, primary school education, and they could have done more. Why couldn't these funds be channeled to those areas? Knowing the benefit, it will benefit the majority of Nigerians, both now and in the future.
But then that's a good question, because many people are also asking that well, we expect that the government lawmakers make sacrifices, just as the president is demanding from Nigerians. Well, we have to make more sacrifices. And what is happening if we are making more sacrifices? How come we are having our lawmakers spending this amount of monies and feeling that they cannot do away with them? But what is even most concerning is the fact that this would not be the first time SERAP has been filing lawsuits against different acts or different absurd acts of government. And people are beginning to wonder, how many of these suits have returned with yielded any positive result? Not just in the sense that maybe judgments that favored SERAP's case was given in court, but that it actually stopped the government from doing that act or carrying out that act. During the elections, we also had SERAP, a lot of the 2019 election. The past administration, SERAP had sued and taken the former president to court several times to produce this document, a lot of things. But at the end of the day, we don't see any of these things happen. People do not see those cases turning around to become something that we can look at and say it's a signal of hope. So how can you explain? Has there been successes recorded ever since SERAP, for the various lawsuits SERAP have instituted in court?
So thank you very much. So I'll look at this from different perspectives. I'll start with this. Two wrongs don't make a right, it is popularly said. Now, if we have a government that takes credit for impunity and does not obey the law, does the citizens copying the government and also disobeying the law doesn't make it right? Of course it doesn't. So because we believe in due process and the rule of law, because we believe in the judiciary as sanctioned by Section 6 of the Constitution, we will take our grievances to court, even when it appears, and I use the word appears, that we do not get there is no success in it, as it were. But it does work. If not, why do they act so using even social media to clamp down on the freedom of expression, trying to stop conversations such as this? It is because those advocacies should work. And secondly, we need to understand critically the role that citizens play, including SERAP in this instance. SERAP is just a group of like-minded Nigerians. We are not foreigners. Like-minded Nigerians who have come together to form a legal advocacy organization. We're just Nigerians, majorly made up of lawyers who have decided to use the instrumentality of public interest education, emphasis on public interest education, to bring government to comply with its own laws that he has made. And so we've had judgments from the court, as it were, that are positive. But we've also had a lot of instances, more than 90%, more than 95%, if I can say that, where those judgments are not obeyed. But does that remove the fact that what the government did is wrong? And does that make our action of submitting issues to the court wrong? Of course.
But then that's it. It's almost like the way Nigerians begin to perceive labor, the labor unions. There's the perception that every time you talk, you do this, and then you start the strike, and then you suspend it, and then things get worse, and you come and talk again, and you go on, and then you suspend it. It has now created this distrust. People are almost not concerned. For SERAP, it's gradually becoming, SERAP will always, I'll bet you if I open the phone lines now, the receptions we've been getting, messages, people say, it's SERAP again, they'll just go to court, and what will happen will still happen. So it's almost as though they're asking, how many cases can say, okay, maybe the government would not obey the orders. Maybe the government would not follow whatever the courts say. But can we just know all of these suits that have been instituted in court, how many of them, if you can name or mention a few that had judgments that perhaps were not even obeyed by the government or any arm of the government?
Okay, I'll quickly start with that before I go to it. I think it's very important for me to draw this out. You see, it has now become, this is one of those, and I get it a lot on social media, this is one of those unfortunate consequences of the malfeasance in governance, where the people have become so happy, as it were, that we now even question those who are here to do the right thing. And don't forget, and that is exactly what those in public offices who are the perpetrators of impunity want. Again, you now start questioning those who are taking the right step and ignore those who are apparently doing what is wrong. So this level of angst, I think I can understand the angst from Nigerians, should be directed towards those in public offices and not organizations like SERAP who are taking steps to do what is right. And within that context, the last judgment we got was from the Federal High Court Lagos just last month, compelling the governor of Delta State to provide details of how much that state has provided as its counterpart funding from 2015 till 2019 when we filed our suit, and how those funds have been spent to the interest of the communities in Delta State, as the UBEC Act has provided. And that is what we get the background of what happened to one success Adego in 2019 at that time. And the court ruled in our favor. And the court said the government must provide that information to the public, including SERAP. It's not a win for transparency and accountability. The court has upheld what the law is and sided with Nigerian people. That judgment, unfortunately, is yet to be obeyed. But you cannot blame us for going to the court to enforce a right. Oh, and again, and I think I will end with this question when I'm wrapping up. What would you have citizens do when due process of the law appear not, emphasis on appear not to work? And of course, that would lead to illegality, that would lead to chaos and anarchy, which of course nobody wants. We also got a judgment from the Federal High Court compelling the government to provide details of how much was obtained as CCTV loans from China in 2015 and how those funds have been spent. Again, we know that the Nigerian government got billions of naira from China as loans to finance CCTV and other security infrastructure in Abuja, particularly at that time. But those things do not exist, and we've gone to court. And again, after 3 years of trial, defended by the government and the Ministry of Justice, the court again ruled in favor of SERAP and the citizens of Nigeria and compelled government to gather information.
All right.
The government did not obey that.
I'm going to highlight a few. I think in maybe at the state level, you've highlighted some of the successes, and perhaps the government might not have obeyed those orders or judgments that SERAP got from the court. But specifically on issues that relate to this. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was sometime in February, there's a report of SERAP suing Allowance over failure to cut unlawful 228.1 billion naira National Assembly budget. Did that happen? Was it cut? That's a question many would ask. You had also sued the National Assembly over increment of the budget. I already said that. And then there was the 5.6 billion naira luxury cars. SERAP, and this one I think you also had Ezekwesili and others suing the National Assembly on this. It wasn't just SERAP, even we had SERAP, we had budget, we had enough is enough. And almost about 6,000 Nigerians filed this lawsuit to restrain and stop Senate President Ahmed Lawan and the National Assembly Service Commission from releasing that money for that purpose. Did that stop them from actually doing it? So my question now is, in situations where we see these outrageous or unbelievable things, some things that really look absurd, and we cannot stop them by going to the court and getting orders that would stop our politicians and leaders from doing certain things that doesn't make sense at a particular time, what then becomes the option?
I am a legal practitioner by training, and there is no way any legal practitioner will advise anyone to do what is unlawful, which is why we believe in the judicial process to ventilate our grievances that we see as people. And so the actions we take is not because we think it doesn't make sense. We take those actions because it contravenes the law, that is, it is unlawful. And the judiciary, by reason of Section 6 of the Constitution, is that institution that is mandated to determine ultimately who is right, who is wrong, by interpreting the laws to provide duties and obligations. You cannot blame citizens for taking those steps. And I've mentioned the only alternative is unlawful acts, which of course we do not want and we will never advocate or canvass for, how much less take part. So we will continue to use the instrument of the law, even when the government has become the highest perpetrator of impunity, to use those laws to challenge government action. And citizens must also understand this. We should not let that angst that we feel, that cynical tendency, it may look justified as it were, that's criticism in due process, to stop us from continuing to demand for our rights, hold government to account. We will and those two suits you mentioned are still pending in the court, unfortunately. So what is administration of justice in the judiciary.
So as a lawyer, what do you say then? What do you say as a lawyer about the judiciary? Because it seems, like you said, still in court. So these suits are like since 2019, if I'm not mistaken, some of them.
Yes.
Since 2019 for some of them. And in that time, while they were even in court, the monies for whatever might have been released and whoever is doing whatever, because they bought the cars, clearly. We all know that they bought cars. And does that mean that we would see the same thing happen with this particular suit or this particular situation now where they are demanding monies for bulletproof cars and the rest? Would that then happen? If even if it's in court, how does the judiciary then do? What exactly is the procedure? Because we need to understand, how does the judiciary take such matters, and why, for instance, the last one you said, sadly still in court, over 3 years or more, and still in court. How does the judiciary attend to such issues when they come?
Before I speak specifically to the issue of judiciary, we need to understand, as we're having this very important discourse, that when we advocate for transparency and accountability and good governance, like we do in SERAP, the effect is for everyone, whether you agree with us or not. And the essence is to lay down the due process of the law. So when we advocate for good governance, transparency, and accountability, we also understand that it affects our own critical, can call it our own community as lawyers, because, of course, what we do is within the context of the courtroom. And so the inefficiency that we've seen in governance and transparency and malgovernance also affects the judiciary. It means that funds that would otherwise have been allocated to the courts to make their justice, even providing infrastructure and logistics, is not there. It means that the processes of the court will be slow. It means that people will either revert to self-help or use other agencies of government to do things that otherwise would have been subject to judiciary, which again affects even our own business in court as lawyers. It means that the process is slow. The judgments I've mentioned, two judgments I've mentioned to you were filed in 2019, and we got judgment in 2023, and we are happy. And so we still have others pending that we filed in 2019. So we, of course, we are victims of that.
But then even getting the judgment in 2023 does not equate to the government obeying or doing what the judgment said. Or, for instance, let's say if, for instance, this particular case you've instituted in court now to stop the assembly from spending that humongous amount of money on cars that they might already have or can afford personally, if we put together the allowances that they get and et cetera, this might take another 2 years, let's say, if we're going to go by antecedents. In the space of that time, whatever money that needs to be released to buy whatever car or do whatever should have been done. So how do we tackle that? Because I've asked you an important question as to if we're having this situation where the one place that constitutionally we can go to stop our leaders from taking certain decisions that might be absurd, if that one place doesn't deliver as it ought to, or even when it delivers, it's not obeyed, it's almost as though the people then would have no other options. Is that what the situation is going to look like?
Exactly, that is what it's going to look like. And that is why we understand that first and foremost, is why we advocate for good governance. Because, it affects everything. And I say this often. If the education sector isn't working as it should, the health sector, security, the power sector is not working, what makes us think the judiciary will function 100%? It's not realistic. And that is why the advocacy for good governance should be done holistically. We need to understand its benefits to us as derived from a system that works. So again, we are all victims of these inefficiencies in all the systems, including the court, which is, as I said, the last of the common man. So you're looking at this suit from SERAP, but multiply that by 7 matters, landlord-tenant matters, employment matters, sexual offenders. So you can extrapolate this to see the bigger picture, and you would understand the necessity of good governance. Again, we are doing the best we can to make sure that we use the due process of the law to make government do the right thing, because that is what the law says. Unfortunately, everyone is a victim in this instance. Like they say, it's just a matter of breakfast. Ultimately, everyone will have their own. But it's a sad reality, and that should inform the compelled citizens to understand the need for advocacy of good governance. It shouldn't be done because of pride or religion or politics. No, it should be done because it affects everyone ultimately.
All right,
whether the court, on the street, with the police or health, and
All right, Mr. Kolawole, we are already out of time, but quickly, I just need your response on this from SERAP's perspective. We know that the NLC is threatening to embark on a strike and shut down the nation if there's further increase in the price of petrol. We already know what's happening with the dollar. The government will say it's nothing it can control. The international market is what determines the price of petrol. What does SERAP think about the move by Labour and the response of government to this price situation for petrol?
Of course, the Labour has the right to go on strike and demonstrate. But it's like every Nigerian citizen. Labour is just a citizen group. It represents the interests of the worker. So it is within their right to do that. And everyone is feeling the pinch in this instance. And every Nigerian has the right, as part of freedom of expression, to express themselves. It is right. The policies of this administration, again, one need not be an economist to understand that no matter how well-intentioned policies may be, and that is not saying these policies are well-intentioned, the absence of transparency and accountability robs us of the positive effect at least by 50%. And that means that no matter how well-meaning it sounds, without being transparent and accountable and leading by example, obeying orders of court and being transparent and cutting their budget, every public officer, including the president, is not still sincere in what they are doing.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. Okay, well, then we heard it from the Deputy Director of SERAP, Kolawole Oluwadare, and his response to how many cases SERAP has won, and even the ones that they still have in court that are similar to the ones that they are taking to court now. All right, let's see if we can take a few more calls. And then the messages on WhatsApp. Ojone Justice says, in as much as SERAP has a nice case, that's at the heart of the Nigerians. SERAP has never celebrated victory. Awari Briggs, serious protests can help to put so many things in order, but we are afraid to die. But we want to make heaven, but we don't want to die. Tammy Doffin says the only language government of Nigeria understands is strike and protest. See when cost of living is going higher by the day. One thing I know for sure is nobody goes with wealth when he or she dies. Look to our neighbors in the north. This is Agboriga Valentine. I think he's referring to Niger. Okay, some of the messages there we have on Facebook. We'll look at WhatsApp. Meanwhile, 0817-923-0003, 0817-923-0002. Or you can call 0817-923-0007. Either of those numbers, and join us live in the studio. This message from Michael in Okrika. Your message is pretty long, so please, I won't take every part of it, just part of it. While I commend SERAP for always acting nobly on our behalf, has the organization also sought FOI requests for details of NAS budget? Yes, they have. I think if you follow the conversation, you'd see him talk about one of the situations even in Delta State, so which means they've also have for the NAS. I highlighted one of those cases in the past, the 9th Assembly. I don't think SERAP going to court and not getting government to obey the judgment should make us dissuade SERAP from going further, of course. This one says, good morning, Franklin. We are really in a deep mess. National Assembly planning to purchase SUVs. Like I normally say, until the masses all march out to the street and say enough is enough, nothing will ever change. It's Franklin, you sent that one in on WhatsApp. Another message here says, good morning. The fact that this group are able to unveil some of these secrets of government is a plus. I give them kudos. Another one says, there seems to be no light at the end of the tunnel. Too many factors gave rise to this price issue for petrol. However, we'll continue to suffer the consequences. SERAP suing NAS from going ahead with the 40 billion naira to buy bulletproof SUVs, which is a good one. But we live in animal kingdom where even Napoleon is confused. Charles Cottrell, you sent that message in. SERAP is doing a nice job. That evil is having an upper hand presently does not mean good people should stop fighting. Sir Joe, you sent that one in. I'll take one more. This one says, good morning. Leadership is the problem in Africa. How can Nigerians be facing numerous challenges and leaders are sharing monies in such way the National Assembly is doing? That's what's confusing to me. I'm thinking, I'm hinging all of this on the president saying Nigerians should make more sacrifice and be a bit more patient. Things might get a bit more tough, but at the end it will be fine. And then at the end of the day, we see people are seeing lawmakers spending these amounts of money. And you're asking, what do you need the bulletproof cars for? You already have cars you drive to the assembly now, don't you? I'm sure you do. So how many cars do you drive at a time? And that's subtracting other allowances that they get. at the assembly outside their salary, which is what they always would put forward and say our salary is not really huge. But you forget the allowances that you get. We were here with the Nigerian Air when we heard House Committee Chairman and, how many percentage some people want and all of that. All of these things happen. But then we still have to keep going to the judiciary and hope things work better. Ifeami Andrew is my name.
Ida of trading himself. James, hello.
Susan, I beg. Say you the wine meaning.
For where?